we talk about ownership, it could be a legal right or an equitable right.
Okay.
So, but most of the time when ownership is mentioned, it equates to legal rights in property. First and foremost, I will advise the investor now, you need to do your due diligence on the property. It is really key. Now, when I talk about due diligence, I'm not talking about the regular due diligence. I'm talking about forensic due diligence. You have to go behind the documents, behind the title documents, to be sure what you're getting yourself involved in. And that is where the services of an experienced real estate lawyer comes in. There are lawyers who specialize in real estate transactions and who specialize in due diligence.
Hello and welcome to a very interesting episode of Just Africa, here where we spotlight ideas, people, and of course, interests that shape the African continent. And today we will be talking about the real estate environment. Well, perhaps most of the conversation would be fleshed out to Africa, but we're going to zero it down to real estate conversation in Nigeria. Property is more than just land. We know it is an identity, it's a form of security and legacy that people leave for generations. And for Africans at home and across the diaspora, owning property in Nigeria represents a powerful connection to roots and one of the most promising paths to long-term wealth. Yet, for many, that dream has been threatened by legal uncertainty, fraud, family disputes, and of course, unclear ownership structures. Welcome to Just Africa on Souk News Television. And of course, here we will be talking so much about how to improve your money. I remain Emmanuel Amolo, and I'm going to dive you solo today. But of course, do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at Souk News Television, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Just Africa Show. To help us break this down, we've got the very delectable barrister herself. She said we're going to explain this part to me, but I will let you all hear it. Her name is Lynn Chioma Opurum. She's a real estate lawyer, a realtor, an author, and of course a principal partner at Lynn Opurum Legal, a trusted voice at the intersection of property law and wealth creation. Welcome to the show today. I can say Barrister Lynn or Barrister Opurum. Okay. You're telling us off camera first off. Lynn, I assumed it was Linda, but you said no. So please enlighten us that part where perhaps it's a name that we'll start to give our daughters, because it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's just Lynn, L-Y-N-N. That was the original spelling my mom gave me, my parents gave me as my baptismal name. Okay. But then, while writing it in the course of growing up, I felt, why double the N? Why not just stop at one? One N. Yeah. But it's not a unique name. It's not something that, what does it mean? Because when you mention baptismal name, I assume it's one of the Orthodox churches, Catholic? No, I'm an Anglican. Anglican. So I don't, but so it's obvious that Lynn is not, it's an English name. Yes, it is. What does it mean? Because it's not so common. From my research, it means waterfall and pretty. Waterfall and pretty? Okay. Yeah. Let me write the name down. I think I'm going to use it very easy. Well, let's dive straight into it. Help us break this thing down. When we talk about ownership of or real estate, what does it necessarily mean in your own experience? Well, for me, ownership basically means your legal right to property. Okay. That's a nutshell of what ownership means. Now, when we talk about ownership, it could be a legal right or an equitable right. Okay. So, but most of the time, when ownership is mentioned, it equates to legal rights in property. So, when somebody comes down and say, "I am the owner of the land," and the only thing that is there is just maybe the father owned it, and then the father is late, and then he's the next person. Is that enough to say you are the owner of the land? Well, that is if there are people who don't have equitable interest in the land. For example, let's say the family used the land to borrow money from someone with the promise that they will pay back within a certain period. So in such situations, we have the legal owners and also the equitable owners. So equitable owners can claim ownership of the same land that belongs legally to somebody else? To some extent, the law recognizes them. They have their equitable rights. Won't there be conflict
at some point. I mean, equitable means I've used the land to a certain period, or I'm still using it. But there's somebody who has maybe documents to the land. Is there never a time when perhaps one part can now say, okay, I've been here for a long time, maybe because of maybe like 30 years I've been using this same land, although I don't have the papers, can I claim ownership of that land?
Well, there is a legal principle that says when two equities are equal, the first in time prevails.
Hey.
But now...
It sounded very technical. Sorry. Oh, go on.
When two equities are equal, the first in time prevails. That means the first person to come is the person the law recognizes. But however, if there is a legal owner and there is an equitable owner, obviously the legal owner takes preeminence or precedence over the equitable owner.
Okay, I know I'm going to go back to the more technical questions, but let's come down to the ones many commoners will understand, right? Okay. In Nigeria, one of the problems we've always had with housing is the cost. Yeah. I'm talking now not from the owners, but I'm talking about people who want to rent an apartment. Why has real estate pulled in more investors, but at the same time become very, very expensive for the common man?
Now, are you talking about the person wanting to invest in real estate?
Yes, if an investor, real estate looks like a very good place to come in.
Of course it is.
Now, but for house, what do you call it, tenants, let me use the word, it is now very high for them, very expensive for them to get good houses. So it's benefiting investor, but it is not so beneficial to a tenant because of the cost. Why is it so? You mean
the cost of renting the property?
Yes.
Well, that is solely the exclusive preserve of the landlord. But then, while the landlord is fixing his rent, he also has to put into consideration a whole lot of things, including the tenancy law in place. So you don't just fix your price arbitrarily or out of the blue. It has to be, for example, in Lagos State, the rent has to be in line with what obtains within the neighborhood or that locality.
So it's going to be very hard, for example, if somebody goes into a particular area and then you're looking for houses and they're all telling you almost the same prices, but the houses are not necessarily the same thing.
The more value the property has, the more value the rent will be.
Oh, wow. Anyway, let's come back down to your expertise. You are a real estate lawyer. You've been advising people on how to invest in it. First off, explain to us, right, the real estate environment in Nigeria. What does it look like? And then before we talk about the potentials and how to get investors in, what does the real estate environment in Nigeria look like?
Well, first and foremost, in as much as a lot of time, most of the time rather, people believe real estate investment is an unsecured investment, most especially in Nigeria. But with the right professionals behind you and with the guidance of the right real estate professionals and experts, I believe is a good investment to look into. But now you should be careful, an investor should be careful. You shouldn't pay so much attention to where they say, oh, this is cheap land. The land is cheap here, land is cheap there. But the truth is real estate investment is not cheap. If it comes cheap, then there must be a hidden price.
So that you probably got a face in front.
Yes,
you will
exactly.
Not see it in the beginning.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So if the land is cheap, then you have reasons to worry. Because for you to get optimum ROI, return on investment, real estate investment is not cheap. That is just the truth. So if anybody is telling you affordable land, affordable this one, affordable that one, just know at the back of your mind that real estate investment is not cheap. So if you're going for cheap land, there are some hidden things, hidden charges, yes, and maybe the legal title might be defective. Now, for a property that has a C of O, it can't come cheap. That's just the truth of the matter.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's some of the things we put into consideration.
Okay, before I ask you what are the documents somebody needs to have or need to look out for when you want to get a land, I want to know, if you were to advise somebody who comes to you first and says, oh, I want to invest in real estate, that's what a typical person will come and say. What will be your first things to advise them to do?
Well, first and foremost, I will advise the investor now you need to do your due diligence on the property. It is really key. Now, when I talk about due diligence, I'm not talking about the regular due diligence. I'm talking about forensic due diligence. You have to go behind the documents, behind the title documents, to be sure what you're getting yourself involved in. And that is where the services of an experienced real estate lawyer comes in. Because there are lawyers, but there are lawyers who specialize in real estate transactions and who specialize in due diligence, property due diligence. That is their core specialty.
Yes.
Yes, so I will advise the person to first and foremost talk to an experienced real estate lawyer. Then you also need to decide on the location you're interested in. That is very key. Now, apart from the location, we're also talking about your budget. How much do you have? How much do you want to invest in? I also advise the person to look at the title documents. Of course, the lawyer will take care of the documentation and ensure, in the course of the due diligence, the lawyer will make sure that the documents are okay and all that. Then you also need to have at the back of your mind the reason why you're going into real estate.
Everyone's a big body. Okay. That's why I'm going into real estate business.
Okay, are you going into real estate for commercial purposes? Okay. You want to get a place, build like a plaza, a mall where businesses can rent. Yes. Okay. Are you going into it because you want to go into short-let apartments, Airbnb? Okay. Are you going into it because maybe you want to like build, how do I put it now, warehouses for e-commerce in view of the growth of e-commerce in Nigeria and the way businesses are going? So are you going into that for that reason, or are you going into agriculture? Yes. Is agriculture the reason why we want to go into real estate investment? So there are a whole lot of things to consider and think about. But at the onset of the thought, I think the first thing you should be thinking is a legal person to work with for proper guidance and direction.
So what documents do you need to have to say, truly, this property belongs to me?
Okay, first and foremost, when clients come to me, the documents I look at most of the time, I will group it into three, apart from the receipt, which shows that
you made a purchase?
That the purchase has been made. You've paid money for this property. Now I'm looking at what I call the map. That's number one. Then I'm looking at the root of title, and then I'm looking at the transfer. Now, by the map, I mean the survey plan. Okay. Because by the map, I'm talking about the survey plan. Now, and for somebody who wants to create wealth through real estate, the survey plan I'm talking about here is the red copy of the survey plan, the copy that has been lodged at the office of the Surveyor General of the Federation. Yes. Now, because most of the time, the survey plan is underrated by investors and people because they don't really understand the importance of this document. The survey plan is basically the document that tells you the coordinates of the property you're buying. Is a document that tells you the GPS or the coordinates of the land. So for me, the survey plan is so important and so key that if at the end of the day you have the wrong coordinates and you have a CFO, as far as I'm concerned, your CFO is worthless because the CFO is for a wrong piece of land. Yes. So the map, which is the survey plan, is key. Then for somebody who is interested in creating wealth through real estate, like I mentioned earlier, you should always aim for the red copy, not the blue copy. The blue copy is the provisional copy of the survey plan. Then after...
I hope people are writing that because at this point, you don't lose track. So there's a red copy, because like, it just reminded me of a movie, Matrix. I was saying blue pill and red pill, and one is very important. You take one, it sends you somewhere else. I take one, does something else. So the red copy is for...
is a copy that has been lodged at the office of the Surveyor General of the state.
It doesn't mean the blue copy is bad. It doesn't mean something else.
The red copy is the one you should be interested in.
Okay.
Yes, because that is the one that is at the
office of the
Surveyor General of the state. Yes. Now I'm looking at the root of title. Now, by the root of title, this is basically the document that gives the seller the legal right to sell that property. And of course, by virtue of the provisions of the Land Use Act of 1978, all lands in urban areas in the state belongs to the governor of the state. So for any legal right to be legal, the government has to allocate that land.
Yeah.
So if it's a CFO, it has to come from the government. It should be verified. Then if it's a secondary sale, we're talking about a deed of assignment with, of course, the governor's consent. Then for excised lands, that is lands in villages. We have, in Lagos State, for example, you have land in villages. They were originally land that the government had interest in, but for some reason, maybe the people have gone to the government to ask, please give us back this land, we want to use it for development. The government now excises part of the land to the village or the community. Now for such lands, it is usually gazetted. So the gazette is basically what gives the people the right to have access to the land. So for the root of title, we are looking at the CFO, the deed of assignment with the governor's consent, of course, and then the gazette. Then let's now talk about the transfer.
Yes.
The transfer is a document that basically transfers the legal title from the seller to the buyer. And now we're talking about the deed of assignment. And of course, again, by provisions of the Land Use Act, considering the land belongs to the governor, so any transaction or any transfer of legal title in land must have the governor's consent. If it doesn't have the governor's consent, the transaction is inchoate. Okay, let's say it's incomplete.
Okay.
So until you obtain that consent, that transaction is incomplete. So that is why it is key to obtain the governor's consent once you make any real estate purchase. And I also want to point out here, now, CFO for land, CFO, we just have one CFO for a plot. We don't have more than one CFO. Now, for a land that has CFO and there's a subsequent purchase, what you do is you get a deed of assignment and then get a governor's consent. You perfect your title. We call it perfection of title. You perfect your title by getting the governor's consent. So basically, the documents you should be looking at, apart from the receipt, which shows that you've made payment. Yes. We're looking at the survey plan.
Yes, which is the map. Yes. Yeah, the map. I remember. I got thinking of the map. Like, okay, map. The one of
the CFO,
title, the CFO.
Or the gazette, or the deed of assignment with the consent. Yes, and then the deed of assignment.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, but I'm sorry. The thing is, if there's any of these missing, any of these three missing, can a complete transaction be said to have been made?
To the best of my knowledge, no. Then there are some other documents. Apart from these documents, there are also other documents which are also obtainable. For example, if you're dealing with the property of a deceased person, somebody who has passed on, and you're dealing with the family, now we are talking about whether the person died intestate or the person died testate. Dying intestate means the person died without making a will. So, yes. So in that situation, what the family gets is a letter of administration. But in a situation where the person makes a will, that means the person died testate, the person left a will. So you get, and the will has been lodged at the probate registry, you get the grant of probate. So it is either of these documents that gives the family the right to sell those to sell the property if they want to sell it. So if you're buying the property of a deceased person and the first son is signing a deed of assignment for you without a court order, a court authorization, which is either the grant of probate or the letter of administration. Now, that transaction is illegal, invalid, something like that.
So, look, the plenty things that you're breaking down shows why there are so much conflicts around properties and land, because many of these things are not even known, right? Okay, somebody dies, he does not leave a will, and then automatically the children want to sell the property to you. You just probably pay, collect receipts and go, you think you made it. Then 10 years time, government comes and says they want to claim the land back, and you say, no, they sold it to me. You show them the receipts, and they're telling you it's not enough, you start to argue. So if you want to make a purchase, for example, I want to buy from a family of a deceased person, what are the things I need to ask for? And if they don't have it, I better just remove my hand from that land.
That's what I'm saying. The letter of administration or the grant of probate. The grant of probate is given when the person left a will. But in a situation whereby the person did not leave a will, is a letter of administration. So it is key.
It comes from the government?
Yes, from the courts, from the probate registry, the courts.
Wow, this is a lot to take in, I ain't gonna lie. Because the truth is, it is making a bit of clarity for us. But all these steps that they need to take and everything is looking like why real estate is expensive. Because again, the question is, why is real estate expensive in Nigeria?
Well, for me, like I said earlier, if it's cheap.
If it's cheap, yeah, that's why is it expensive? Why is it not cheap?
Yeah, well, it's expensive because you're paying for the legal title. You're trying to secure your title and your legal interest in the property, like I said earlier. And most of the time, people make a lot of mistakes. They try to shortcut or bypass the process by trying to get cheap land. But the truth is the cheap land has some things attached to it. Real estate is not cheap. Real estate investment is not cheap. So that's why I always advise people, if you're going into real estate investment, I will advise you to buy a property with the current, that has a good title, with apart from having a good title, with the current market value or the prevailing market value considering the circumstance and the economy. Because buying anything cheaper that doesn't have the required title, you are, how do I put it now? You're just making a gamble or taking a risk. Yes, and at the end of the day, it does not always favor the buyer or the investor. This is considering investing in real estate is a form of security. So the money you're paying for legal perfection of title, the money you're paying, just see it as a premium for your security, for the security of your investment. Yes. So that when you make that purchase now, 10 years from today, the title is still valid. Nobody is coming tomorrow to ask you, this one, there is no layout approval from the government, or there is no CFO. No, there is no this, there is no. So it's better at the onset to do the right thing, bring out the money and buy the property with the right title. Because like I always tell people, there is no shortcut to it. If you do shortcuts, you fall into the hands of scammers and fraudsters. Yeah,
which is what everybody wants to avoid at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know one of the things a lot of people talk about, especially with the recent one that happened with this coastal highway, was on what grounds can governments claim back your land? Well, you don't know everything, because that's what everybody will argue. Oh, I have document everything, but on what grounds can government claim back your land?
Well, by virtue of the provisions of the Land Use Act, the government can claim back a land for overriding public interest. That's what the law says, for overriding public interest. And once the land is reclaimed, you're entitled to compensation by the government. So that is why it is also key to do your forensic due diligence when you're making any real estate investment. There is no need to do shortcuts. In as much as I know that a lot of things go underground, but if you do your forensic due diligence, you see the master plan. And you know if there is a canal passing through here, you will see it in the master plan. Even if today that place is a dry land, maybe next 20 years the government will wake up and remember that
that place is canal
right
there.
Yes, so anybody that has an investment there, it is going. So it's key, do your due diligence. And even if you're going for the property, of course, make sure that the property is not under committed acquisition. There's something we call committed and non-committed acquisition. Yes, if it's...
Explain, please, because there's technical at this point.
If the property is under committed acquisition, that means the government has a specific plan for it. Maybe they want to use it to build a highway, or a bridge, or a general hospital, or an airport, or anything. That is for committed. But if it's non-committed acquisition, sometimes people go after such lands because you can regularize it and maybe change the land use, of course, with the consent of the government. But yeah, but in a situation whereby, but for me, it is best to avoid any property under government acquisition, to avoid stories that touches the heart, and also to do your forensic due diligence. Because it is forensic due diligence that will tell you that, oh, this place is dry land today. But when you check the master plan and check the building what is it called? The coastal road alignment and some other laws. There are a lot of land laws in Nigeria and, of course, in Lagos State. You will see all those things are there. So when you go through it, you know, oh, there is a canal here, or there should be a highway here. So even if today there is no highway there, there are houses there. But tomorrow when the government wakes up and decides to reclaim their land for the highway, what do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah.
When are you open to get compensation for things like this? Say, for example, they now come and decide to put a pedestrian bridge right in front of your house. And then, I mean, what grounds do you have for them to now give you compensation? Because, I mean, they own the land. If they now wake up tomorrow and say they want to use it, what grounds gives you leverage to get a compensation from them?
Well, it depends on if the land is not under committed acquisition. Once it is committed, you are not entitled to anything. That is just the truth, because you should have known at the onset. But if it's uncommitted, non-committed acquisition, then you should have regularized. Yeah, but
so that's another condition. If you did not regularize, you're still not entitled to compensation.
Yes. So, but the most important thing is this: the land is the government took the land for overriding public interest and purpose. That's just the only rights or grounds the government can use to take properties that belong to individuals.
Wow, you've been doing this real estate thing for quite a while. Like how many years? I know you said 2009 we were talking offer, but have you been doing this real estate for that long?
Yeah.
That's 25 years.
No.
It's almost 25
like
years.
16 years or there.
You are a veteran already as it is. What are the common mistakes that you have noticed over the years that people who are entering into real estate for the first time often make?
Okay, now are we talking about people generally, or are we talking about diasporan or women? Or
okay, let's break it down into parts. People generally and then diasporans. You've noticed their patterns over a while. So what are the common mistakes that they make? First, do generally and then do diasporans.
Yeah, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the lack of due diligence. Most of the time, somebody shows you land, oh, see this land, it is dry land, it is good, it is, an agent, of course, shows you, and you feel it's not necessary to consult or inform a lawyer, and then you go ahead and make the purchase.
Payments, yes.
And make the payment. Then tomorrow, when it boomerangs, you start shouting and start
doing press conferences up and down. Don't worry, I'm not calling anybody's name. Yeah.
And another, apart from just that, you need to involve, like I have been hammering, the importance of forensic due diligence cannot be overemphasized. Then people just go into it without the right guidance and direction. Yes, they just see, oh, the dry land, this one, that one. They go ahead and make a purchase. They don't look at the land use. For example, I've had an experience whereby a couple contacted me. They wanted an agent already showed them a portion of dry land, and they really loved the place. Only for me, by the time my team and I looked into it, we discovered that that land has been, is committed for agriculture. So there is no way, there is no way you can get a building approval for a residential purpose for that land. Yeah. So these are some of the things. People don't look at the land use. They just go on, and do what agents tells them. So I think...
What are diasporans? I mean, I know you deal with a lot of diasporan investments, right? Do they also make this kind of mistakes, or they're only peculiar?
Well, for diasporan investors, well, considering my years of experience, and I've I've worked in Abuja, Port Harcourt, and now I'm in Lagos. So I've had experiences in these 3 major cities in Nigeria. For diaspora investors, one mistake I've noticed with them is this. You know, most of the time they rely on proxies. And these proxies are either friends or family members. And these proxies are not even real estate professionals. So they rely on what the agent is telling them. They rely on videos, on pictures, on the flyer. They're not asking the critical, technical questions.
Like, we don't know now. I'm sure many of them don't even know. You like 5-10 minutes, you told me some words I've not heard in my life before.
That's why you should consult a lawyer.
Yes.
As soon as you think of buying land or house, just talk to a lawyer and the lawyer will put you through. And another reason why, I don't know if I'm digressing.
No, go on.
Another reason why people don't really involve lawyers, because they are running away from extra fees and extra charges.
Yes.
And some of them, by the time you tell them, oh, it's 10%, they'll tell you, oh, why will I pay 10%? Somebody will collect 50K to do it. But I can assure you...
Don't treat us on that divorce, God, I beg.
Because they believe they're just calling you to come and drop the legal documents. But the work of a real estate lawyer goes beyond that. Before you even drop the document and put your stamp, your seal, and thanks to NBA now, the Nigerian Bar Association, they're also trying to bring in some sanity into the whole thing by trying to, monitor it.
Okay.
So any document, any legal document now goes through the NBA. And now you pay the 10% to Nigerian Bar Association. You're not paying to the lawyer again. So any lawyer telling you to bring 50,000, I will do a deed of assignment for you for a property worth 100 million is...
A red flag already?
Yes, it is.
That's weird. That's new. Wait, how long has this policy with the NBA?
Okay, it started last year, towards the end of last year, and some of the branches are keying into it. Yes. So now, what obtains now is if you've bought a property and you need your lawyer to do the legal documentation, the lawyer gives you an NBA account. That's the account where you make payment for the lawyer's fees, the 10%.
Really?
Well, this 10%, now I'm also digressing.
Go on, because I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to this one at this point. Go on.
Okay. Okay, now the 10% depends on the volume of the transaction. If the transaction is, 10% applies if the transaction is less than 50 million. If above 50 million, there are some...
Okay, so it's higher than 10%.
No, it's lower, but there are some mathematical calculations that we need to do. Yeah, but the 10% is usually pegged for transactions below 50 million. So now what the NBA is doing is this: when you prepare the property document, you send it to the NBA, and then the client pays the 10% into an NBA account, which the lawyer will send to the client. And then the NBA also goes through the document and vets it, and then they put their seal, the NBA seal on it. Then the lawyer goes to NBA, collects the document, and then puts his or her own seal on it there. So that's a way we are trying to...
Off air, I was expecting you, I was asking you to help me explain this 10% thing. Because I knew you were talking about 10% in terms of purchasing real estate and having to pay into the NBA account, started from last year. But does this same 10% arrangement apply to those people who want to go and rent properties? Because I know they always add that 10% agreement to with lawyers. It does not apply, or it does?
No, it does apply.
It does apply?
It does apply.
Okay.
Yes, but under the good thing about this question you're asking now is under the new Lagos State Tenancy Bill,
yes.
I'm not sure it has been passed. The party that engages the services of the lawyer will be the one to pay the lawyer the 10%.
Okay.
But you know, previously, it used to be the tenant that pays the 10%.
10%, yes.
But most times it's the landlord that gets the
10% or maybe
it's the landlord that gets the
agreement fee.
No, that engages the lawyer.
Okay.
The landlord engages the lawyer, and then the tenant pays the 10%. But under the new Lagos State Tenancy Bill, it hasn't been passed the last time I checked. So by the time that law comes into effect...
No, I think it's operational. I think it's operational.
Has it been passed?
Yes, it's just execution that is always the problem. The law is there now. The law
it has been passed?
Yeah.
Okay. So what that basically means is whoever engages the services of the lawyer is the person that will pay the 10%. So you can't engage a lawyer and then the tenant...
And to now be the one to pay the 10%.
Yes.
So if they now stylishly add it to the rent,
I don't know.
If the landlord, for example, because I'm supposed to pay the lawyer, I engage the lawyer, right? But rather than have you pay, I will not add it into the rent you will pay, then I remove it and then pay. Is that also allowed? I mean, it's just like a way to bypass the law. That way, the tenant is not paying the lawyer since they did not engage the lawyer. But the landlord now adds it into your rent. Say, for example, it's 10%, and then the rent is 1.5 million, I'm just saying. And then rather than say pay 1.5, I say okay, pay 1.6. Then I now remove the 10% and now pay the lawyer. It's kind of like working. I just give like fee and
well, that is circumventing.
Yeah, but it's going to not make it look like you didn't pay, the tenant did not pay, you only paid you the rent and now paid the lawyer. But it's a way to go around it. All right, I know I did, most of these things are really new to a lot of us, yeah? But if we were to be educated, or how much education do you think we need so that we will do better investments in real estate? Because like you said, it's good. It's a good investment, but how much information or education do we need as lay people or as investors?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, please?
Education, how much education do you think we need to have? We are not lawyers. Many of us are not lawyers.
Yeah.
But I know you said engage a lawyer. But how much do we need to know first before engaging the lawyer?
Well, I always believe that the most expensive thing to pay for, especially when it comes to real estate investment, is ignorance. Ignorance is the most expensive thing to pay for.
Okay.
So do your own. If you want to buy land or a house on your own, do your own investigations. You can go on Google, find out. Oh, I'm interested in Lekki Phase 1. I'm interested in Maitama. I'm interested in Eneka or Trans Amadi in Rivers State, Port Harcourt, Rivers State. So do a random search or research. That's why the importance of research and investigations cannot be underemphasized. Yes. Do your own independent search and investigation. Have an idea of what obtains in those areas. You don't need to be a lawyer to understand some of these things. Okay. At least doing the search, the investigation, it gives you an understanding of, oh, in so place, the price range for property in this area is between this and this. Yeah. So that by the time you now go into the market, you are able to, nobody will sell an overpriced property to you, which the appreciation, how do I put it now? How do I put it now? Okay, sell a property to you for a price that you would have bought it in a few years to come. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like, you're buying your future price.
Yes. Yes. Okay, for example now, because you don't really know how much land is in this area, and the current market value is 5 million, for instance, then the person sells you the property for 20 million because you didn't know.
You didn't know, yes.
And you didn't do your underground search and your due diligence. So now, for that property that you're buying 20 million, but the current market value is 5 million. It will take like 10 years for the appreciation. So yeah, for you to have to see the profit back on
yes. Oh, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And then you also need to do a lot of reading and research. Okay, I have a book, Land, Law, and Legacy. The legal blueprints for legal purchase in Nigeria. It's an e-book, actually. Okay. So people can also get it if they want. It will give you an understanding of how to go about all these things. At least the book is quite affordable. I actually have 2 books, Land, Law, and Legacy, understanding the legal blueprints for legal purchase in Nigeria, and then Land, Law, and Her Legacy, understanding property rights of women in Nigeria. So if you can lay your hands on either of these books.
You know, this is your second book, just put a question in my head. So, I know at some point it was looking like women could not own properties in Nigeria.
Yeah, but women can own properties in Nigeria.
They can, and you can will your properties to women, and no uncle in the village will come and collect it from you.
Well, in as much as we live in a patriarchal society where women are sidelined, but the laws are in support of women. Now, we have the Married Women Property Act of 1903. It's actually a statute of general application. That law gives married women rights to own property in their names.
In their own names?
Yes, in
not
their
in their husband's name?
Yes. So that law is still applicable in Nigeria.
1903?
Yes. That law is still applicable in Nigeria. So it gives women the right to own properties in their name. So you don't need the what is it called? The name of your husband
yes.
or the consent, authorization of your husband to own property. Also, the 1999 Constitution prohibits any form of discrimination on grounds of gender, sex, tribe, and all that. Then also the, what is it called again? The Constitution of Nigeria, the 1999 Constitution as amended, also gives people right to own immovable properties anywhere in Nigeria. Yeah. So no woman should be sidelined, irrespective of the fact that, keeping in mind that we still have a lot of cultural, customary laws which prohibits women from owning land or from inheriting land. But that one is...
Wow. Yeah, it is. Look, we're not going to exhaust a lot of these conversations today because time is fast spent, but I've got like 2 questions just to wrap it up, right? Okay. The first one is flexible plan, flexible plan payments. Is this something that you advise, especially in terms of real estate investment? And then to wrap it up, how can people like yourself, I know you've got a book which is helpful, how can people like yourself, of course, the legal, entirely to clean up the real estate sector so that at least it avoids like fraud, cheating, or whatever it is? Those 2 questions, and then we're done.
Okay, first I'll go with the flexible payment plan.
Yes, is it something you advise people can do?
Well, I wouldn't say yes and I wouldn't say no. It depends on the circumstances and the peculiarity of the situation. Now, I'm saying this because of the following reasons. Flexible payment plans, in view of our contemporary economic situation in Nigeria, it is really advisable because people may not really have the bulk money to use and purchase for outright sales or purchase. So, hence the need for flexible payment plans. Now, flexible payment plan is good if the terms and conditions attached to it is favorable to the buyer. Most of the time, what we see now is most times real estate companies, they own land and then they allow people to subscribe. They have like a payment plan for people to make payments and then spread payments over a period of time. So basically, in the course of that, they give you a contract of sale. So most of the time, when clients give me their contract of sale to review for them, I basically look out for 3 clauses. The first clause I look out for is the negotiation and the revocation clause. Now, that is a clause that basically tells what happens if the buyer reneges to make payments. For example, let's say you've been paying religiously for 6-7 months, and then life happens, or the person loses his job. What happens? Now, most of these contracts of sales, what you see there is this: if you default in making payments, the real estate company cancels the transactions, and then your money is refunded less than 30 or 40% for administrative fee. So if you're making payments and you've made payments for, like, let's say 10 million, and you've spread the payments over a period of, let's say, 10 months, and you have just 2 months to go, what the company will give back to you is 6 million. So now you've lost your property, and then you've lost your...
Now 4 million.
Yes, you've lost money, and you've lost your property. So basically, the way I help out my client is this. I try to insert a clause whereby I negotiate. First and foremost, I'll negotiate with the seller. Okay, if life happens, I try to get at least 3 months grace period for my client. And then apart from that, try to peg the default fee, the administrative fee,
yes,
to like 10% maximum.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so instead of paying 30%,
yeah.
so you're paying 10% maximum as admin fee. And then you get instead of the 2 months grace period for default, you're getting 3 months grace period.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things you get when you engage a lawyer. Most people will not engage a lawyer. They will just go, they'll see a flyer and then proceed.
Flexible plan. And you think it's very cheap to do.
They don't read the blueprint.
Yeah, we're looking at the 2 sides or the clauses that involves flexible payment plan. Use that to wrap up.
Okay, now I mentioned earlier the revocation and...
Yes, the clauses that you usually see, yes.
Then I also want to talk about the price variation clause. What this clause basically does, and for me, this is the most important clause in the contract of sale, considering the economic realities of the Nigerian economy in recent times. So what this clause basically, a summary of it is this, that if you're on a payment plan now, and along the line, the prices of things go up. For example, you're paying 100 million for a property, and you've paid for like 8, 9, 10 months, and then the price of cement goes up, and then the seller or the developer sends you a message and says, oh, the price of cement has gone up. So you're now paying 135 million as against the 100 million we agreed on. So you either pay the balance or the deal is off. So now, as a lawyer, that is also where I come and look at that clause critically and see how I can help the interests of my client and salvage it. So what I basically do, I insert a clause which logs in the value of...
At the time you want to purchase it?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. So that what that my clause basically does is this. If I'm paying you now, so you need 100 bags of cement, better than get the 100 bags of cement.
Now, I'll give so it. So it doesn't price doesn't change. I come and inflate my real tomorrow. Okay, makes sense.
So that locks in the price of the material components into the contract. So that protects the right of the buyer.
Yes.
And then, well, basically, take all plus or minus. Generally, for me, for payment plans, I think the most critical question a buyer should ask him or herself is this: if I'm unable to make payments for 3 months consecutively, what happens? Do I still lose my investment?
Yeah.
Do I lose my investment, or do I have any chances of at least recouping my investment? So now, if the answer is no, you lose your investment, then I think it's a fragile plan. It's not a flexible payment plan, and you shouldn't go for it. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Barrister Lynn, for being a very I mean, look, you've taught us a lot, and I do feel like we would have you back again for another conversation, because we didn't finish most of what we wanted to do. At least the time when you're having fun, the time is always running fast. But anyway, thank you so much for being our guest for today, at least for this segment of the show. We're glad to bring you back.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
It's also a pleasure to be here.
All right.